They used to call me Catherine Wells. Or at least they once did. These days, I sometimes feel like a ghost in the very apartment I've been paying rent for these past 3 years. A forgotten name on a lease that everyone assumes belongs to someone else. I spent decades building a life, raising my daughter Jessica alone after her father walked out when she was barely 2. I thought sacrifice was love until the day I realized the warmth I gave to hold everyone else together never found its way back to me. Have you ever given everything you had, only to discover there's nothing left for yourself? The story I'm about to tell, that's what happened when I finally found my answer. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe, and please tell me and others, what's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? Share it in the comments below. Thanks. It doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with a whisper at a child's first birthday party, surrounded by balloons and laughter that somehow felt miles away from where I sat. My daughter said, "Don't sit there. That seat's for the family." She didn't scream it. Just said it loud enough for me to hear. Loud enough for me to understand. Loud enough that the words will echo in my mind forever. The party was being held in my living room. The same living room where I'd rocked Jessica to sleep countless nights, where I'd helped her with homework at the coffee table I'd saved months to buy, where we'd watched movies together during those early years when it was just us against the world. But lately, I felt like an intruder in my own space. A burden they tolerated rather than welcomed. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small bedroom, the one I'd moved into after giving Jessica and her husband David the master bedroom when they temporarily moved in after their wedding 2 years ago. Through the thin walls, I heard their voices, low and frustrated. "She's always hovering," Jessica's voice carried clearly. "I can't even parent my own child without her jumping in with advice." "Maybe it's time we found our own place," David replied, though his tone suggested he didn't really mean it. "With what money? You know we can't afford anything decent. Besides, this place is perfect for us. It's just her." My fingers gripped the edge of my blanket. The same little girl who used to crawl into this very bed during thunderstorms was now discussing me like I was a problem to be solved. "We need to set boundaries," Jessica continued. "Make it clear this is our home now, not hers." "But it's her name on the lease," David pointed out. "For now," Jessica said, and something in her voice made my blood run cold. "But she's getting older. Maybe it's time she considered assisted living. Somewhere she'd have people her own age. I'm 58 years old. Hardly ready for a nursing home, but apparently old enough to be inconvenient." I stayed silent until their voices faded. No tears came, but something shifted inside me, a quiet recognition that the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to her happiness. So today, as I watched Jessica arrange the living room for little Lily's first birthday, I feel hollow. The apartment buzzes with activity, David hanging streamers, Jessica's mother-in-law directing the placement of gifts, friends arriving with perfectly wrapped presents and bright smiles. I carry a tray of homemade cupcakes from the kitchen, Lily's favorite, made from scratch because store-bought never seemed good enough for my granddaughter. No one offers to help. No one even notices. I set the tray on the dining table, and that's when I see it, a chair positioned at the head of the table, decorated with a pink sash and a small sign reading, "Birthday Girl's Family." It's clearly meant for Jessica, positioned where she can help Lily with her cake, where all the photos will capture her beaming maternal smile. I took a step toward the chair, thinking I might adjust the sash that had slipped slightly. That's when Jessica appeared beside me. "Mom," she said, her voice sharp but quiet. "Don't sit there. That seat's for the family." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stopped, letting my hand fall away from the chair. No questions, no argument. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a stranger wearing my daughter's face. Someone who could dismiss the woman who'd worked double shifts to pay for her dance lessons, who'd gone without new clothes for years so Jessica could have everything she needed. I nodded slowly, like I understood. And maybe I did understand, more than I wanted to. I turned away, walked through the crowd of guests who barely acknowledged my presence. The hallway to my bedroom felt longer than usual. Each step echoed with the weight of 26 years of single motherhood, of every sacrifice that had apparently meant nothing. In my room, I opened the small desk drawer where I kept important papers. My fingers found what I was looking for immediately, the lease agreement, renewed just 3 months ago. Catherine Wells, it read. Primary tenant. I pulled out a sheet of paper and began to write. Dear Jessica and David. This letter serves as your 30-day notice to vacate the premises. As the primary leaseholder, I am exercising my right to terminate your residency. You have until the end of next month to find alternative housing arrangements. Sincerely, Catherine Wells. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it into an envelope, and wrote, Happy birthday, Lily, on the outside. Not cruel, just honest. A birthday gift that would change everything. I didn't linger in my room. I could hear the party continuing without me, laughter, the sound of wrapping paper tearing, Lily's delighted squeals. I walked back through it all, invisible as always. I placed my envelope among the other gifts on the table. Small and plain next to the elaborate packages, but carrying more weight than anything else there. I stood straight, took one last look around the apartment that had been my home for 3 years, the place where I tried so hard to build a family that apparently didn't include me. No one noticed as I picked up my purse and car keys. No one asked where I was going. I walked out the front door, leaving it unlocked behind me. Let them figure out the rest. My car was parked on the street below. I sat behind the wheel for a moment, looking up at the windows of the apartment. Lights spilled out, shadows moving inside. The party would continue without me, just as their lives had been continuing without me for months. I started the engine and drove to the small motel on the outskirts of town. The same place I'd stayed years ago when Jessica was in college and I'd sold our house to help pay her tuition. I'd told myself then it was temporary, that we'd find a better place together once she graduated. I should have known better. The motel room was clean but sparse. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone, waiting. It didn't take long. Jessica called just after 9 o'clock, her voice shrill with panic. Mom, what is this letter supposed to mean? You can't just kick us out. I can, I said calmly. And I am. But where will we go? We have a baby. You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't family. Silence stretched between us. Then, I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. And that's okay, Jessica. You've made it clear how you feel. Now I'm making it clear how I feel. Mom, please. We can talk about this. We can work something out. You have 30 days, I said, and hung up. David called an hour later, his voice carefully controlled. Catherine, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Jessica's just stressed with the baby and everything. She didn't mean to hurt your feelings. My feelings aren't hurt, David. My eyes are open. There's a difference. Look, we all live together. We're family. We should be able to work this out. Family, I repeated. That's interesting. Because just this afternoon, your wife made it very clear that I'm not family. So why should I provide housing for people who aren't my family? He had no answer for that. The next few days passed quietly. I stayed at the motel, taking long walks, reading books I'd never had time for, eating meals without having to consider anyone else's preferences. It was peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Jessica called several times, alternating between anger and pleading. She accused me of being cruel, of abandoning my granddaughter, of destroying their family. I listened without arguing, without defending myself. What was the point? On the 4th day, she showed up at the motel with Lily in her arms. My granddaughter reached for me with chubby hands, babbling, "Nana," in her sweet voice. My heart clenched, but I didn't take her. "Look at her," Jessica said, tears streaming down her face. "She misses you. We all miss you." "You miss my apartment," I corrected. "You miss my babysitting. You miss my cooking and cleaning and bill paying. But you don't miss me." "That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? When did you last consider what I might want or need? When did you ever treat me like a person instead of a convenience?" Jessica's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I've been selfish, but I'm young and scared and trying to figure out how to be a mother. I need you. You need my resources. There's a difference." I kissed Lily's forehead gently, breathing in her sweet baby smell one last time. Then I stepped back. "You have 3 weeks left," I said, and closed the motel room door. The eviction notice came and went. Jessica and David made no move to leave. I wasn't surprised. They'd called my bluff before, when I'd threatened to stop paying for Jessica's car insurance, when I'd said I wouldn't babysit anymore if they didn't help with household chores. I'd always backed down, always chosen peace over principle. Not this time. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Torres, who listened to my story without judgment. "You have every right to evict them," she said. "The lease is in your name, and you've given proper notice. If they won't leave voluntarily, we can make it official." The legal eviction notice was served on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Jessica called immediately, her voice raw with shock. "You're really doing this? You're really throwing us out?" "I'm reclaiming my life," I said. "What about Lily? What about your granddaughter? What about her? You've made it clear that I'm not family. So why would a non-family member have any responsibility toward her? You're being cruel." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." The final week arrived with autumn's first cold snap. I drove by the apartment building once, seeing boxes stacked by the dumpster, a moving truck parked outside. They were finally taking me seriously. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt empty, but it was a clean emptiness, like a house after a thorough cleaning. Everything unnecessary had been removed, leaving only what truly mattered. On moving day, I returned to the apartment. Jessica and David were loading the last of their belongings, their faces grim with exhaustion and resentment. Lily sat in her car seat, playing with a stuffed bunny I'd bought her. "I hope you're happy," Jessica said as she passed me in the hallway, not meeting my eyes. "I'm not happy," I replied. "But I'm not miserable anymore either." David paused beside me, shifting a box to his hip. "For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. The family should stick together. Family should respect each other," I said. "When you figure out the difference, you know where to find me." They left without saying goodbye. I watched from the window as their car pulled away, Lily's face visible in the back seat, looking up at the building with curious eyes. The apartment felt enormous without their belongings cluttering every surface. I walked through each room slowly, remembering what it had been like when it was just mine. Quiet. Organized. Peaceful. I opened all the windows, letting the cool autumn air sweep through, carrying away the lingering tension that had filled these rooms for too long. In the living room, I rearranged the furniture, putting my favorite chair back by the window where I could watch the street below. That evening, I cooked dinner for one, a simple meal of pasta and vegetables, eaten at my small kitchen table while reading a novel I'd started months ago but never had time to finish. The silence wasn't lonely. It was restful. Weeks passed. The leaves turned brilliant colors and began to fall. I established new routines: morning coffee on the balcony, afternoon walks in the park, evening phone calls with old friends I'd neglected during the years of constant family drama. Jessica called once, about a month after they'd moved out. Her voice was different, smaller, less certain. "Mom. I wanted to let you know we found a place. A small apartment across town. It's not much, but it's ours." "That's good," I said. "I'm glad you're settled. Lily's been asking for you. She keeps saying, 'Nana,' and looking around like she's trying to find you." My heart squeezed, but I kept my voice steady. Children adapt quickly. Would you like to see her sometime? Maybe we could meet for coffee or something." I considered this. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately, to rush over and hold my granddaughter, to pretend nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and pretending otherwise would only lead us back to the same painful place. "I need time, Jessica. I need to know that you understand what happened and why it happened. I need to know that you see me as a person, not just a resource." "I do see you," she said quietly. "I'm starting to, anyway. Living on our own. It's hard. It's really hard. I never realized how much you did, how much you sacrificed. I took it all for granted." "Yes, you did. I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough anymore. I need to see change, not just hear apologies." We talked for a few more minutes, carefully, like strangers learning to trust each other. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: hope. Not the desperate hope of someone clinging to a sinking ship, but the quiet hope of someone who has learned to swim. Christmas came and went. Jessica sent a card with a photo of Lily, now walking and grinning at the camera with 4 tiny teeth. I sent a gift card to a children's store, practical and impersonal. We were still finding our way back to each other, if indeed there was a way back. Spring arrived with its promise of renewal. I planted herbs on my balcony, joined a book club at the library, and started taking watercolor classes at the community center. I was building a life that belonged entirely to me, and it felt revolutionary. One afternoon in May, Jessica called with news. "Mom, I got a job. Part-time at first, but it's something. David has been working 2 jobs, and we're finally starting to get ahead financially." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. "I was wondering, would you like to have lunch sometime? Just us, no agenda. I'd like to talk to you. Really talk, not just argue or ask for things." We met at a small cafe downtown, neutral territory. Jessica looked older, more tired, but also more grounded somehow. The frantic energy that had always surrounded her seemed to have settled into something calmer. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," she began, stirring sugar into her coffee. "About seeing you as a person instead of a resource. You were right. I did take you for granted. I thought because you were my mother, you'd always be there no matter how I treated you. And now I realize that being someone's mother doesn't make you less deserving of respect. It should make you more deserving, not less." We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, perhaps for the first time in years. Jessica told me about the struggles of managing on their own, the fights with David about money, the exhaustion of caring for Lily without backup. I listened without offering solutions, without jumping in to fix everything. "I don't want your help," she said finally. "I mean, I do want it, but not the way I used to. I want to earn it. I want to deserve it. What does that look like to you?" "I don't know yet. But I want to figure it out. I want to be the kind of daughter who adds to your life instead of just taking from it." It was a start. A small one, but real. As summer faded into autumn again, Jessica and I began to rebuild our relationship slowly, carefully. We met for lunch once a month, and talked on the phone weekly. She asked about my watercolor classes, my book club, and my life beyond her needs. I shared stories about my new friends, my small adventures, the person I was becoming in the space she'd left behind. Sometimes she brought Lily, who had grown into a chattering toddler with Jessica's dark eyes and stubborn chin. I loved seeing my granddaughter, but I no longer felt desperate for those visits. They were gifts, not necessities. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, I reflected on the year that had passed since Lily's first birthday party. The woman who had sat silently while her daughter dismissed her as not family felt like a stranger now. I had learned something valuable in the months of solitude, that love without respect is not really love at all. It's dependency, habit, convenience, but not love. Real love sees the other person clearly, values their worth, honors their dignity. Jessica was learning this too, slowly. Our relationship would never be what it was before, that desperate, codependent dance of sacrifice and resentment. But it might become something better, a connection between two adults who chose to be in each other's lives because they genuinely valued each other, not because they had to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, thinking of you tonight. Hope you're well. Love you, Mom. I smiled and typed back, love you too, sweetheart. See you next week for lunch. Then I set the phone aside and returned to watching the sunset. Tomorrow I would start a new watercolor painting, attend my book club meeting, and call an old friend I'd been meaning to reconnect with. I would live my life fully, not as someone's mother or grandmother or caretaker, but as Catherine Wells, a woman who had finally learned that the most important family member to honor was herself. The evening breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the garden below. For the first time in many years, I felt completely at peace with who I was and where I belonged. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is teaching them that you are worth respecting. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to demand that respect, even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. I took a deep breath of the sweet evening air and smiled. I was home.